O Bhagavad Gita, by which Arjuna was illumined by Lord Krishna himself, and which was composed of 18 chapters within the Mahabharata by the ancient sage Vyasa. O Divine Mother, destroyer of rebirth, who showers the nectar of oneness upon us. O Bhagavad Gita, my affectionate mother, on thee I meditate. All the Upanishads are the cows, the milker is the cowherd boy, Krishna, Arjuna is the calf, people of purified intellect are the drinkers. My supreme nectar of the Gita. My salutations to the Lord, who is the source of supreme bliss, whose grace makes the mute eloquent, and the crippled cross mountains. So yesterday we took our time with one shloka, 34, in the 4th chapter, and discussion of how do we learn this truth. It's said that really to learn anything it's like this, but for Vedanta, for this highest truth in particular, it's said that there are 3 steps, and those are Shravana, Manana, and Nididhyasana. Shravana is to listen, which is a thing in and of itself, because generally speaking, we think we're listening, but we're only hearing our own mental manifestations. And then Manana is to contemplate. Nididhyasana is to live as if what's being shared is true, and then see. We were discussing some yesterday that, and Swamiji in his beautiful commentary had also said, just because it's said doesn't mean that we believe it automatically, but there's a concept we'll often share of allowing for it to be true. The process is really a very scientific process, and it's in a way it's hard to relate to, but this life has been nothing but a science experiment. What we're constantly doing is we're taking something to be true, and then we're living as if it's true, and then we see what the fruit of it is. It's like we have a petri dish, if we know what a petri dish is. The people that are working with the scientists, medical professionals, etc., that are working with these influenzas and these viruses and such, that will take a tiny aspect. Everyone probably knows about the COVID test these days. So take a little bit of some material and place it in a petri dish in order to observe what grows from it. And then, having observed what grows, they can see something more about the nature of the thing. In the same way, we're always planting seeds, and then there's fruit that comes from it. So we could say, in a way, we could relate to this lived experience as a petri dish. That is, we're putting something in the dish, whether we know it or not. We're putting our thoughts, our words, and our actions, they're all going into the dish, and then something grows from it. We have the idea that the thing that's growing, the experiences that we have and such, is unrelated to the thing that we put in the dish. However, it's the same. It's the same. It's just, this is karma. It's the same. It's just fast forward. So the seed and the fruit are identical. And here, what's being shared is that if we want to know what's highest, and 34 is dealing with it, where Lord Krishna is saying, come, prostrate, listen, ask questions. Asking questions is required. Serve. And we allow for. And when we have questions, we ask them. And when we don't understand, we say we don't understand. And So like this. And then this morning we pick up at 35, and it's and really we close out this chapter, this Yoga of Wisdom chapter. Here, Lord Krishna says, so what's the fruit of this? What is the fruit of this approach of learning and then living what we're learning, these highest truths, and this sacrificial attitude and approach that's wanting to be cultivated? Lord says, when you realize this truth, Arjuna, you will never be confused again, and you will clearly see that all things in creation are part of you and part of me. So we live in a state of constant confusion in the worldly life, What to do? What's my job? What should I do? Where should I be? Who should I be with? Like this, these questions. And here the Lord says, when you realize this truth, Arjuna, you will never be confused again. Why do we suppose that is? Who wants to take a shot at it? It'll be discussed more, yes.
Because you're always focused upon the Lord, you have no doubt in your Dharma.
Which unveils what? Which unveils
the path.
Unveils the wisdom.
The wisdom.
This is the theme we've been on. It unveils one's intuitive self, which is not different than some other's intuitive self. It's the same intuition, the same universal guidance that's working with each and every aspect, right? So, because there's a process through which the mind can become absorbed, and in doing so, the veils are removed. And having removed the veils, the wisdom is found and lived by, and so never again confusion. I'll share it's a funny thing, because it doesn't mean that you'll be a fortune teller. It doesn't mean that. It doesn't mean you'll be able to predict the future. It doesn't mean that you'll know what will happen when you do a certain thing. It's not like that. But you'll know in this moment what to do. You'll know what is right and proper in this moment, which is actually all that's needed. To see how the rest of the play plays out. Sometimes we see part of it, sometimes we don't, but it's really not necessary because the play is fluid anyway. And we put all of the importance in the play instead of putting the importance in the reality. Right? That's the mind, the drama king, drama queen, which is putting the importance in the show and the theater instead of in the heart, in the center of the being, in the reality of the being. So all we really need to know is what to do now. And then in another moment, now. And so the confusion is gone about this. And then the idea of knowing what's happening around, well, when there's clarity, it's known that what's happening around is the play, but it's also known that there's suffering, and it's also known what to do in this moment. So, like this.
So just to make clear, Swamiji, this inner wisdom can tell you something, but it can also tell the opposite thing to someone else, right?
Absolutely. Of course. Why not?
It's not about the thing, it's about wisdom.
Sorry?
It's not about the thing itself,
It's not about the thing itself. Really, honestly, it's just about being connected to the light.
Right.
And understanding that all is the light. And you will clearly see that all things in creation are part of you and part of me.
And once you're in the light, then it won't seem like opposites, right?
Correct. What you'll often hear is the idea like unity and diversity. The unity is always here, even though the show is diverse. And it's and as we begin to see, we see that actually the diversity is simply the proof of the unity. The fact that there are two indicates the one. The fact that there are two indicates the one. And it's a question of, which way do we look? If we look out, there appears to be only diversity. If we look in, there's unity, but the two are related. So you will clearly see that all things in creation are part of you and are part of me. Even if you had been the worst sinner, and we have some words on sin here, and again, we go back to the concept. It's not the Western concept of sin that's being applied here. It's we've had the discussion, but it's worthwhile again just to say that the word sin, as it's used, simply means thoughts, words, and actions that take us apart from the truth, away from the truth. Non-judgmental use, completely non-judgmental use, just used for discernment purposes. But we can say that there certainly do appear to be evil actions in the world, and we can also, and we engage in them ourselves, right? And we can also see why, how that's happening, what's precipitating it. Here from Swami, we'd like to offer this morning a couple of commentaries from Swami Venkatesananda, quite lovely. He translates this way, 36 and 37. Even if thou art the most sinful of all sinners, yet thou shalt verily cross all sins by the raft of knowledge. As the blazing fire reduces fuel to ashes, O Arjuna, so does the fire of knowledge reduce all actions to ashes. Just to add a comment, so this wisdom, this love, which are the same, that's veiled is in every single person, every single thing. Here, it's the center of this creation. So, Peace Pilgrim used to say, there's that spark of good in every single person, no matter how deeply it's been buried. And so all it takes is to unveil it, regardless of how deeply it was buried. It's just that. So, this jnana, or intuitional knowledge, or wisdom, is fire.
That's it.
Oh, it burns. It purifies.
It's like the city of Lanka.
It illumines. It seems to hurt, by the way, but what is it hurting? It burns, it purifies, it illumines. It burns all the impurities within the human heart. It purifies all that it touches. It illumines the truth. The self hidden in the heart of man by the veil of ignorance, with its heavy incrustation of sinful deeds, birth after birth, is the truth. It is the veil that is affected by sin. The self-like space is unaffected by whatever happens. It is unlimited and ever pure. When the fire of knowledge is kindled in the human heart by the sage guru, this fire reduces the evil, and then he says, which is veil misspelt, to ashes. Lovely, right? Beautiful? And which is veil misspelt, to ashes. The heavy incrustation of sin only makes the fire grow more fierce. There's more to burn.
Wait, can you repeat that?
Yes. The heavy incrustation.
Incrustation, okay.
You understand? Yeah. The crust. Without, only makes the fire burn more fierce.
So it's like dry wood?
It's like dry wood. It's definitely flammable. So it's the thickness of this encrustation is immaterial. Fire is unaltered by what it burns, and fire burns all. Quantity is not the criterion here. A spark can reduce a whole forest to ashes. So I think we catch the concept that he's sharing. No matter how bad the person's behavior will be, the light and the fire, if it's imbibed in, will burn it all. Unlike most forest fires, but like the fire that catches a veil, this fire of knowledge destroys the very roots, the entire veil of sinfulness. So that self-centered motive itself is destroyed, which is underlying, right? Even that feeling of being separate, which is that deepest underlier of the actions that are taking us away or taking us into bondage, that even is burned. That feeling of separation even is burned. With ignorance is burnt desire along with its ramifications. The fruits of past actions, the sanchita karma, are burnt too, for they were themselves part of the dream from which the wise one has been awakened. The future actions, agami karma, are egoless and desireless, and so bear no fruit. But sarva karmani is plural, not dual. Even parabdha karma, the effects of past actions which have begun to fructify, which governs this incarnation, is cheated by the wise one who does not identify with the self, with the body and the mind. That is, when one realizes one is not this body and this mind, when one fully realizes it, it would be said that the karma of the body and mind will continue, just like the arrow shot from the bow, that it will continue. But so what? So the point here is made that we were not this karma to begin with. We were not this person to begin with. So people ask, will the karma ever end? And the answer has to be no, it never ends. But if we ask the question, is there a way for me to be unaffected by the karma? Then the answer is yes, of course. Know yourself. Know yourself as being distinct from the karma. And that's the wisdom. Not just intellectually we can grasp it. It's amazing that intellectually we can grasp it. That won't do it, but that will help. Because then we have a theory to live according to. We can sow the seeds in a different way. And then in the petri dish, something different will come.
Equation.
Thus, freed from karma and ignorance, even the most sinful one shines as a sage in the light of knowledge of the self. Neither the veil of ignorance, nor the evil action, nor to live in sin and suffering. And he's put 3 words in bold type: veil, evil, and live. And you know the reason. Now that you have the clue, you know the reason he has the 3 in bold. Is based on truth. They're born of non-understanding and die on understanding. And then the next 2 slokas will stay with Swamiji here. Next 2 are this: verily there is no purifier in this world like knowledge. There's nothing that purifies like the fire of knowledge. Really, the problems we deal with, there's no way to fix them other than the light. Right? And we see it so clearly in times like this. We're just fighting and arguing amongst each other, and nobody's right and nobody's wrong. It's the funniest thing. We have data for everything. So this light, this fire of truth is what purifies. It's only self-knowledge. And self-knowledge, there's a very specific way where self-knowledge can be attained. And yes, it does require service. We do have to turn things around, and that's what's being shared with us. But once that fire starts to burn and we feed the flames, then that will purify anything. So there's no purifier in this world like knowledge. He who is perfected in yoga finds it in the self in time. The one who is full of faith, who is devoted to it, and who has subdued the senses obtains knowledge. And having obtained the knowledge, she goes at once to the supreme peace. No one is barred from knowledge of God or self-realization. No one is eternally damned here. All beings will gradually evolve into perfection. Everyone. In due time, every living being, even a worm which you may tread on, will attain perfection in yoga and find the knowledge in the self. That is the purpose of creation. The world exists to provide schooling for the individual so that it may attain to perfection. Perfection is the direct experience that imperfection, self-limitation, sin, and sorrow is but a dream. Self-realization is the truth. Self is ever real. There are some who say, we shall get it done in due time, why bother? And they fail to see that only when the time has come does one bother. The pregnant woman bides her time. It is only when the time arrives that she bothers. Not that she bothers because she wants to. The seeker cannot help it. Her time has come. For the others too, the time will come. For all are evolving towards perfection. And how do we recognize that time? How do we recognize that time? We could say, well, no. But in another way, we could say, when we can't do it this way anymore. Right? So it seems that we must all then be, when we're going about living the worldly life, we must all be pregnant in that way with that, which will at some point come to the point where we have to be bothered. All are evolving towards perfection. How can we recognize whose time has arrived? By faith. The seeker who is at the threshold of knowledge is full of faith. This faith is totally different from the faith that breeds conflict, right? People will say they have faith, but that's blind faith or biased belief. Not the same, really. Right? We know blind faith because it'll always get broken. So it's not real faith, but we also understand that there are examples of full faith. This blind faith is born of a veiled vision of truth. In the ignorant, the truth is veiled. In the faithful, truth shines through the veil. This faith compels her to be devoted to that, the self or God, with her body, mind, heart, and whole being. This whole soul devotion is accompanied by its natural corollary. She is self-controlled, and her mind and senses do not run riot. All this burns the veil and reveals knowledge. This knowledge quickly leads the seeker to the supreme peace, or Brahman. I think we complete the chapter this morning. Let's see. Because of ignorance, some people have no sincere belief and are constantly skeptical. They are ruined. A mind like that is unhappy in the present and the future. If you dedicate your actions so your work becomes karma yoga, all remaining doubts will be destroyed in the fire of your awakening. At this point, all bondage falls away and you will remain poised in the true self. I think we'll come back to those tomorrow morning. Questions or comments on what we're discussing this morning?
Something we say in AA sometimes is
Yes.
When you get sick and tired of being sick and tired, you'll come to AA.
There we go.
Or you'll go on to the bitter end, jails, institutions, and death.
But then we carry it into the next birth.
Yeah.
So it has to happen, doesn't it?
There's a breaking point.
It has to happen. For those of us that have had it happen and then have come out the other side, which is a part of evolution. It's just a part of evolution, because we're not ever other than who we are. That's the truth of the situation. We're not. You can pretend for years, but it's just pretending. You can pretend so hard that you imagine yourself to be the thing that you're pretending to be, but you still can't actually be it. Right? So, but because the powers that are given, the powers that are in the self, or the powers that are in the center, we have the ability to pretend really hard. And we have the ability to take ourselves to be what we're pretending to be. But it doesn't change the core. And so if we can relate to this process of evolution, then it has to be the process by which we learn that what we pretended to be won't satisfy. Right? And so that will naturally take us. And then as we come through this, and everybody here is involved in this process of coming through this, no doubt everyone here has some level of vairagya, some level of dispassion with the worldly life. Right? And so coming through it and getting the glimpses of the truth, and then coming to the place where we know the truth but have no pride in it, of course. Then the question is what to do, and it has to be, as we continue the study of the Gita, and as we continue living this life, it has to be to live in the light and shine. Right? Doesn't Jesus say something like, be a beacon? So, the light placed under a basket. Oh. Okay. So, one more chance, anything for this morning? Please, Chadamanta.
Just thinking as you were saying about living in the light, that part of that is also seeing what isn't the light within ourselves.
So there's yes. Swami Shivananda speaks of the spiritual path. Sometimes, in particular, relatively early on, and I don't know what that means other than just to say that. In spiritual life, in the spiritual path, it seems so hard because our habits are so strong. And especially when we come to see that it's the habits that we've fallen into that are the problem that we're dealing with, or the opportunity for the flame to burn away. When we come to see that, that's grace, because we also see what the work is. And it can seem like so much because the habits, they don't change easily. Right? Some of them are so persistent that it takes absolute willpower, and still they don't change easily. This is a discussion that Arjuna has with Lord Krishna later on in the Gita as well, that, that habit of whatever it is, and I can think I'm on top of it, and I see I'm not. And the same things happen over and over again, that same person comes and I get tweaked again, I get worked up again. The same word comes and I get worked up again over it, and I forget myself and all of this. So it can seem at that point like this spiritual life, attempting to live a spiritual life, attempting to uplift, attempting to live in the light, is a circle. It can seem like that. Swami Shivananda says, no, it's actually a spiral. That it's really a spiral. That yes, we'll come back to the same experience, but we'll see that as we give ourselves more to the light, that even though that experience comes, the inner reaction to it is shifting and changing. So that's the process of the light itself burning away. And so it comes like this. And so yes, it's true. And there's a point here where we have to put tremendous effort in it. And then there's a point here where it just comes naturally. So still vigilance is required. Master Shivananda would not say just relax and take it easy at that point. But it becomes more like just shine the light on it and it burns. Just by bringing the light on it, just by recognizing it, and it's transformed or transmuted. When I was walking on pilgrimage, I shared with some people, so now more, that there are many different techniques for these things that are arising. And one of them, I carried a flamethrower in the mind. Inside, I carried a flamethrower. And sometimes, this may sound really weird, but it worked. Has anybody ever popped a cloud? Do you know what I'm talking about?
No.
Has anybody ever looked at a cloud? Come on, this is a thing, actually. Visualized a cloud and then popped it, seen it dissipate. Has anybody ever practiced that?
No.
No? You have.
I mean, if you visualize,
Like throwing darts at it.
Yeah, like throwing darts at it or something like that. Okay, fine.
Thought clouds.
In the same way, a thought cloud. Sometimes it's fun.
You might even call it a thought bubble then?
A thought bubble.
Popping bubble.
Just when it starts to arise, some old tendency, it just starts to arise and you see it right away. No!
I got a visual of those, balloons at the fair that you throw darts at.
Yes.
Yeah.
The flamethrower one's good.
Oh, okay. Let's close with the final prayers in RT, page 174. Om Trayambakam Yajamahe Sugandhim Pushtivardhanam Orvairukmeva Bandhanan Mritsuhor Mukshiyamam Mritat Om Trayambakam Yajamahe Sugandhim Pushtivardhanam Orvairukmeva Bandhanan Mritsuhor Mukshiyamam Mritat Om Trayambakam Yajamahe Sugandhim Pushtivardhanam Orvairukmeva Bandhanan Mrityur Mokshiyamam Mritat Om Sarvesham Swastir Bhavatu Sarvesham Shantir Bhavatu Sarvesham Purnam Bhavatu Sarvesham Mangalam Bhavatu Sarve Bhavantu Sukhinaha Sarve Shantu Niramaya Sarve Bhadrani Pashyanto Makashi Dukhabhag Bhave Asato Ma Satgamaya Tamaso Ma Jyotirgamaya Mrityor Mahamritam Gamaya Om Purnamida Purnamidam Purna Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vasishate Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. O adorable Lord of mercy and love, salutations and prostrations unto thee. Thou art omnipresent, omnipotent, and omniscient. Thou art Satchidananda. Thou art existence, knowledge, and bliss absolute. Thou art the indweller of all beings. Grant us an understanding heart, equal vision, balanced mind, faith, devotion, and wisdom. Grant us inner spiritual strength to resist temptation and to control the mind. Free us from egoism, lust, anger, greed, hatred, and jealousy. Fill our hearts with divine virtues. Let us behold Thee in all these names and forms. Let us serve Thee in all these names and forms. Let us ever remember Thee. Let us ever sing Thy glories. Let Thy name be ever on our lips. Let us abide in Thee forever and ever. Namah Satguru Shivananda Maharaj Ki Jai. And salutations to all the saints and sages. Jai. Okay. And for RT, RT is 210, page 210.